Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/127, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or call the voicemail hotline at 202-930-1109. Check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. I'm going to turn to the camera because we are live, baby, live for episode 127. Hello, YouTube. Hello, live people. Hello, not live people, because here's a little tip for you. If you can't make the live show, you can still check it out afterwards because it's all archived in the Pedalshift YouTube page, which I hope you're going to go see a lot more frequently because I'm making more videos. And I hope you got a chance to see all four of them, the 4 chapters of the videos for the Missouri tour. Again, my addled brain here. I was talking in the pre-show banter with folks in the live room that I have an addled brain, and that is definitely evidence of it right there. So this is a show where we're going to be talking about my August tour plans, plus some interesting news about my discoveries on the C&O trail this weekend. Oh, by the way, I did a weekend little kind of getaway on the C&O and did some camping, discovered some cool things that are going on with the C&O, because as you have heard from me on multiple occasions, there's an outage there around mile marker 52 or so. Well, I decided that I would ride out there and back over the course of this weekend and check it out for myself. And I have some interesting news. So I'll be sharing that with you in the second half of the show. Also, a little bit of good news about the West Coast and the Pacific Coast Tour route. As many of you know, Big Sur has been just sort of locked down and closed off on Highway 1 for but part of a year or so, I think. So we've got some good news on that. So we'll be sharing that. We like good news. We like good news in the bike touring industry. We like good news generally. Good news is good. We prefer good over bad. So let's talk about my next bike tour, and that's going to be when we get into the journal. Journal is a part of the show where I talk about bike tours, your tours, and mine. And in this instance, we're going to be talking about my next big bike tour, and that is coming in August. I wish I had a drum roll to play for you people in the live room, but I don't. I may even not do it for the podcast, but drum roll in your head. Just put a little drum roll in your head. My next tour is going to be the Oregon coast with a twist. For those of you who are thinking, wow, I can't wait for Tim to say something new and different that he's never done before, I'm sorry to disappoint you in that sense. However, here's the fun part. Well, let me back up. Let me talk why I keep going back to the Oregon coast. The Oregon coast, first of all, in the teeth of summer in the East Coast where it's hot and sticky and humid, going to the Oregon coast is so fantastic. Even though the weather in the Portland area has changed since I lived there when it was an absolute paradise all summer long. Now you'll get triple digits and nobody has air conditioning because you never needed it before. But the coast is great because you get those nice cool breezes, and you'll end up with days in the 60s, nights in the 50s. It's bike touring paradise, right? So I like touring the coast because it has great amenities. I think, you've got tons of great campsites. You've got tons of places to go eat. You don't have to stress out about your trip. It's got beautiful coastline. I've had pictures up. You've seen pictures of the amazing coastline. It's challenging, but it's not, a death march, right? It's got hills, but it's not these, crazy Brocktidis style hills. Hi, Brock. But the problem with the Oregon coast is the access time. In order to do the southern part of the coast, I have found that it is really, really difficult to figure out a way to get back. The southern coast doesn't have, or at least historically had not had, any way to get back up to Portland, which is sort of the way that I like to do things. You want to go from north to south because of the predominant winds. Portland's an easier place to fly in and out of rather than, say, Medford or Ashland or something like that. So that's always been a problem. Anytime I've wanted to do the Oregon coast, it's either I go down to Newport and then I turn around, or I go all the way down to San Francisco, or at least to Northern California. It's kind of tricky because those towns are smaller. They don't have kind of the amenities to be able to handle stuff, to handle getting you and your bike back until now. So the southernmost town in the state of Oregon of note is Brookings. And for years, the book is, I believe, Bicycling the Oregon Coast or Bicycling the Pacific Coast, right? That is a great book, except it's thoroughly and completely out of date. There is a new book that I've seen, I picked up, and it looks pretty good. But in the purple book, the book, as I've always referred to it for years, it keeps saying, or it has said, because at the time it was probably true, there was a Greyhound bus out of Brookings and you could come up that way. Not true. It's been gone for years. So getting back from Southern Oregon has always been a bit of a crapshoot. You couldn't really do it very easily or very inexpensively. However, what if there were a way? What if there were a way to link, say, transit? And that is where we get the twist. I've been keeping an eye on the public transit on the coast for years, and from about the middle southern portion of the coast, it's always been linked together in a really good way. So if all you're doing is going down to Newport or even down to Yachats, if you're not familiar with the state of Oregon, just get out a map. You can kind of see all these towns. Yachats, by the way, is spelled Yachats, but it's Yachats. There is something new, though, because Yachats isn't far enough south for me. I need to get to Brookings all the way down. I want to be able to tag that California sign, and I want to turn around and go back to Portland. And finally, I can do it because this year, sometime, and maybe it happened last year, but this is the first time I was able to see it, is Curry Public Transit. Go to currypublictransit.org if you're on one of your internet machines, which I guess you must be because you're watching this or listening to this. You will see that they have bus service that goes northbound quite a ways. So it solves a major piece and it connects a major piece. For those of you who remember a few Augusts ago when I did a crazy stunt, when I kind of had the same idea of linking together bus and train transit systems from DC all the way up to Boston, this is kind of the same idea, except it's not as far and it's not quite as bananas crazy as that trip. But it will require more bicycling on my part going on the northbound route. So anyways, I want to give a little bit of an overview. I'll have all of this in the show notes that you can take a look at. That's pedalshift.net/127, including, of course, links to Curry Public Transit, because that's the key one. So Brookings is not far from the border. And I can basically go down, tag the California sign, turn around and come back to Harris Beach State Park, which is just north of the town of Brookings. And that is the beginning of the northbound route. But I don't have as much time as I would have liked. I would have liked to have done an Astoria, cross the Columbia like I did this spring, and go all the way down and do the entire Oregon coast. Unfortunately, I just don't have that schedule available to me. And to be able to spend some time in Portland, I had to make a few changes on that. So suffice to say, it is possible now, using the system that I'm going to be experimental about, to get from to do the Oregon coast north to south and then return back to Portland using this crazy messed up system that I've come up with. So I'm going to take the bus from Portland to Tillamook. I'm going to take the bus to Newport and then stay at South Beach State Park that very first night. That is one of my, I'd say in the state of Oregon, there are a lot of great ones, but that's one of my favorites because I get to go to Brewers on the Bay, the Rogue Brewing Company's wonderful place. I grab a dinner, grab some beers. It's a great place to kick off a tour, I find, Newport, or to end it. So I go from there. I go to Florence. These are the same campsites that I always stay at because I love them. I'm going to knock my water bottle for those of you on the live feed. I love them that much. So I go to Honeyman State Park. That's near Florence, Oregon. Then to Sunset Bay, which is near North Bend. Humbug Mountain, which is near Port Orford. And then the next day, I make a border run from there. Now, normally that's my long day. For those of you who followed my Pacific Coast route, my preferred thing to do from Humbug Mountain is to do a 75-mile day through not insignificant terrain to get basically down to Crescent City. This time, I won't have to go that far. It's actually kind of fun that way, that I won't have to work as hard coming out of Humbug Mountain because it's usually it's usually a bit of a day for me. But it's worth it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go through Brookings. I may or may not stop at Harris Beach first and drop off all my stuff and go unloaded. I'll have to decide on that. If I'm feeling it, if I've got momentum and just want to do it, I'll cruise through. Go through Brookings, go all the way down to the end, to the state border, tag the sign, do the selfie, you know, the usual. And then I'm going to turn around for the first time ever. Turn around and go back north, because that's where I think the fun kind of starts. So I get this great coastal bike tour, and then I get this crazy stunt, which I'm really excited about. So what I'm going to do is go back up to Harris Beach State Park. Again, that's just north of Brookings. And then the fun begins, because I have to get up stupid freaking early that next morning. From there, I go back down south. It's like a mile. It's not that big of a deal. To the city of Brookings. And I catch a bus. That is Curry Public Transit. You can go from Brookings, this is the key, all the way back up to North Bend, Oregon for $20 plus $5 for the bike. So it's not cheap as far as public transit goes, but man, does that just zoom you right up there. Now, before, the southernmost point was Yachats, Oregon. So we still got a gap. We've got to get further north from North Bend to Yachats. So what do? I ride an extra 60 miles after that bus ride. So the bus starts at 7:20 a.m. out of Brookings, gets to North Bend just before 11 a.m., and then I get a full day of riding on top of that. And I'll end up at a new to me state park, Washburn State Park, that is near Florence. It's actually north of Florence. So I'm kind of excited to try out a new state park, but it's also conveniently located because it's only 11 miles south of Yachats. Again, Yachats, the very, 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 very key city for me. That is where I can pick up the southern terminus of the buses that'll eventually get me northbound. So on that next day, I wake up again, stupid early. There is a 7 a.m. bus out of Yachats, and I have to ride 11 miles to catch it. You do the math. Then it's a series of buses, Yachats to Newport, and that's on Lincoln County Transit, Newport to Lincoln City to Tillamook, and then Tillamook to Portland. You can look all of these up. I've got the links in the show notes if you want to go check these all out. But that section of the Oregon coast, if you just Google Oregon Coast bus, you'll see this entire completely connected system. And okay, our Google Home just like went off because I said Yachats too many times, I think. That's what we call a live show, kids. Anyway, so I get up to Yachats and do that crazy all day ride. You would think that it would take me forever to get back and I'll be rolling into Portland at midnight or something. No, I leave Yachats at 7 a.m. I'm in Portland by 3 p.m. And I get the whole rest of my day. And it's a short ride back to my brother's place in Northeast Portland. And boom. I'm super excited about this. I love the element of public transit. You know, I've integrated that in so many of my bike tours, but I'm really super stoked that now I can finally do a self-contained Oregon trip using my bike and public transit. And there's an element of, you gotta make these, it's a little bit of a race. I'm not a racer, but I kind of like all of these elements. And then the nice thing is the buses are all kind of designed to fit together. So one's going to get there and then another one's going to be there for you waiting. And there's some minimal waits for some of these, but it's actually kind of cool. So I'm kind of psyched about this. That is the entire thing. A few notes for you. I'm going to be buying the 7-day pass. Oh, Northwest Connector, by the way, is the name of that northern section of the public transit agencies. The beauty of that's $30. $30 gets me a trip from Portland out to the coast, full unlimited rides on that section of the public transit system, including, and it's going to be most important, of course, on the way back, because I'm not going to be taking it on the way down, but also the ride back. So it ends up being a really great value there. That plus the $25, I think it is, for Curry County Transit. That's going to be it. That'll be the total cost for me. So that's pretty good for transporting me and my bike over the course of those days. I really like that. NorthwestOregonTransit.org. See, I can actually give you the link now. The border run day, I think, is going to be the most fun. The miles between Harris Beach State Park and the border are really flat and easy for those of you who've ever done it. They're actually, after all of the hilliness of the Oregon coast, it's kind of nice to just hammer out some miles. I really like that. And I may, like I said, I may offload, I may not, but we'll have to see how it goes. Early mornings, I talked about that already. Harris Beach State Park is about a mile away. The bus pickup's near the Fred Meyer, so that kind of helps. That'll be pretty good. And And that final day is kind of crazy. It's a very early morning in Yachats, followed by 4 buses with 3 connections. The good news, like I said, they're designed to fit together, so it should work. If I'm up and rolling at dawn out of Yachats, I should be pulling into Portland at 3 p.m. I think that's crazy, and I love it. Another bit of notes for you on this tour, the pack list. I think that I have decided to start experimenting more with a bike packy style setup. I am getting more and more interested in that. I'm seeing more people adopt it. I think that that's the trend in bicycle touring, to really start to minimize things down. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go stove and cook kit free. I found that on the Oregon coast, I tend to eat out a lot because it's good food and it's easy and it's simple. So by getting rid of all of that kind of stuff, the stove, the cook kit, and things like that, that's a lot of space that's freed up. I think that I might allow me to experiment and go pannier free, which is sad because you all know I love my orange and I love my orange panniers, but I'm thinking of saying no. So the advantages to all this: less profile, less wind resistance, lighter weight, easier packing. Downside, of course, no in-camp cooking, no morning coffee in camp. That's the one that's going to get me the most, I think. And I have less waterproof storage. The good news is, if you're familiar with the Oregon coast in the summer, it's not atypical to go an entire week without rain. It's not atypical to get a little shower, but it's rarely that kind of driving rain that I've had on both of my big tours so far this year. But that's what you get for doing Washington State in March, you dummy. Which bike? I am going to be taking my main bike. I'm going to be taking Sequoia, the main touring bike that I have. Alaska Airlines, I think I've talked about this a few times, is my personal choice for flying these days because bicycles count as sports equipment under their rules, and sports equipment flies for $25. Or if you've got like the fancy MVP status like I do, because I fly out to the great state of Oregon frequently and to the great state of Washington frequently, I get 2 free bags. Do I get 2? I get 2 free bags. And so one of them can be my bike. That's pretty great. And then the other one can be, my gear with sharp stuff. So anyways, that's how I'm going to roll this time around. Sequoia rides again. Quick sidebar. See, I wrote in paragraphs in my show notes and I shouldn't have done that, but here we go. Quick sidebar on this new Curry Transit Discovery. I think this is new. I should not read this. Someone locally may know otherwise on this, whether it is new or not. The Curry County Transit System connects to the south as well as connecting to the north. Well, that's kind of interesting, just not for my tour, but something I want to pass along to all of you. It connects down to Smith River, California, which is well down in that area, and that connects with Redwood Coast Transit. Redwood Coast Transit goes all the way to Arcata, California. Now you're really cooking with gas, because Arcata, then you've got other connections from there as well that you can do. So if you really want to do a fast forward on the Pacific coast and you're sort of like, I don't want to do these parts, you've got options now all of a sudden to really zoom through some stuff. Now, you'd be zooming through some of the best stuff, but let's say you are like running out of time. You need to get to San Francisco like I have on an occasion. One time I had to actually turn around and go back because I didn't have enough time to get to San Francisco. Well, now I don't have to worry about that because there are fast forwards available. And I wouldn't have to miss the Avenue of the Giants. I could cut off a day or two if that's all you need just by doing something like this. Granted, you are missing some great stuff. But if the Avenue of the Giants is a definite on your list, you can get down there a lot quicker using the connections here between Curry County Transit and Redwood Coast Transit. Pretty cool. So I've got all that in the show notes. Just something to play around with. If you're local, I would love to hear from you if this is all kind of new. It's a great option. Good way for adding a 0 day and still be productive. There's in terms of your movement. It's really great. So that's it. Oregon Coast, August. Looking forward to it. I don't have much more else to say other than it is a ride I love repeating. You know that. I love that there's a new element to it. I love there's kind of a stunt element to it. And of course, I'll be doing lots of recordings on all of this. And I may also be doing some videos as well, because I think that those worked out pretty well for this last tour in Missouri. So we're going to give that a shot. And I'm excited to share that all with you. And I was excited to stumble onto something like this because I feel like that every once in a while I come up with something that might be helpful for bike tourists in the various places that I like to bike tour. And then this feels like it might be one of them. So more to come. All right, next up on the show is the C&O and Pacific Coast updates that I have been promising. So let's start with the Pacific Coast first. The good news is Big Sur is just about ready to reopen. For those of you who did not know, Highway 1 had a massive mud flow. I'll call it a flow because it was a landslide. Half the mountain fell on Highway 1, and it just closed everything down for a better part of the last year. There are some reports, they are imminently going to be doing the opening here. Some reports of bicycles being permitted through on a nicely compacted dirt and gravel road. There are some reports also of some security dudes sitting on a chair at Gorda, which is the little teeny tiny town where this is sort of at where the cutoff is, stopping people from doing that. So your mileage may vary for this interim period, but it sounds like by end of this month, and I'll have a link in the show notes to some of the various sources that have been saying that. I think I've been putting it on Facebook as well. It's opening up, and that is just fantastic. Now, what I would love is if we get the road to ourselves for a little while. If it's open for bikes but not cars for a bit, that would be pretty dope. I would love to hear that. But finally, so many people do the Pacific Coast. It is, as I mentioned on the couple podcasts ago, it's in my triple crown for long distance. I think it is a fantastic route, and having a hard cutoff, a hard detour that has frankly a sucky detour, that, to use another word, sucks. So I'm super glad that is back. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to possibly doing it again soon. Bad news. The C&O closure at around mile marker 52 seems to be in full, and I'll use this for the camera people in the live show, shrug mode from the Park Service if all you're going by is their website. So let me read that. They've got the closure between mile markers 51.5 and mile marker 54 at the Brunswick Family Campground. Towpath closed, NPS reports. Due to a washout at Culvert 82, the towpath is closed in this section. There is no detour in place at this time. From the west, exit the towpath in Brunswick, or from the east at mile post 50.9. And then they have a couple of possibilities for local shuttles to get around the detour. And the reason is the roads around there are not safe for biking. Period. End of sentence. I'm sure that there are people that could do it, but it's not recommended. Really narrow, really windy, tough riding too. It's a typical kind of Appalachia. It's kind of straight up, straight down kind of a thing, and a lot of it. So that's what the Park Service says. And I was really bummed about that when I first heard this. A friend of the show, Preston Piper, has put up some videos of it. It looked daunting. It looked lousy. It breaks my heart. You guys know, all of you, that I love this trail. So this weekend, I finally got a chance, after all the stuff going on in my life with all my travels and stuff like that. I haven't had a chance to get on the C&O at all, mainly because the weather's been so terrible and difficult, and my schedule's been kind of back and forth. I haven't been able to get on the trail, so finally I got on the trail. And originally I was going to take Belle Star with me, talked about it in the pre-show. Didn't end up happening because it was just that little bit too hot. We had a huge break in the temperatures. Frankly, this was the best weekend, I think, all year by a wide margin for riding on the C&O. It was dry. It was beautiful. The humidity broke. It was nice, but not quite enough for a little pug who has trouble breathing. So I left her at home and I started riding out there, and it was gorgeous. And I had some great pictures. I hope you got a chance to see them over on Instagram and the other various socials as well. And my goal was to go out to that closure and see what it looked like. And I'm going to post some videos because there's some really interesting things I discovered. Let me do the lawyerly kind of thing here and start off by saying, I want to be really clear here at the outset. I am not advocating for anyone to do anything illegal here. Brock, you can chime in here because what is it? Because it would be wrong. I witnessed a few things, however, when I was out there, and I want to pass along this information to you if the C&O is at all in your to-do list for this summer in particular, because I think that this is going to be an all-summer kind of thing. I got out there, And the first thing I did was I go up to the edge of this crevasse that has been formed, basically the whole culvert, and it was stone and steel, and the thunderstorms that came through just swept it away. I mean, I've never seen the power of Mother Nature destroy anything quite like that in a long time. It was amazing. And there were a bunch of people who were trying to get through it, and they went directly down from the trailhead, and they went directly up, and it's about maybe 20 to 30 feet. You'll see on the videos when I put it up. And it was a Herculean effort, and it looked like no fun at all. Waist-high water. It was bad. Let me also say that there are train tracks up above, and the CSX folks were very present there to make sure nobody was going to go there. Do not recommend going on CSX tracks, because you could get hit by a train. I mean, that's part of it. But also, they are super big on enforcing things, and I think they've been very, very active to make sure that people don't get on the train tracks to go through it. Although many people have, because you can tell by how things have gone. It is one of the harder ways to do it, too. So I don't recommend it for any reason whatsoever. It's definitely trespassing, definitely illegal. Don't recommend because it looks stupid hard, too. So I watched a paracyclist do the crossing. I found a substantially easier route while I was standing there. So I'm looking right, watching them do this. And then I look left and I look down and I see there's this gentle slope down to the water level. And it looks like that the water is a lot less deep there. And then so I backtrack a little bit and I start seeing little red flags to the left of the trail. And that got me going, those are surveyor flags. Who would be coming out here with surveyor flags on federal property owned and operated by the National Park? Oh, the Park Service is trying to figure out a way to make this thing all work. So Sherlock Holmes here figured this all out. There were red flags that led me down there. And they also took out a few trees along the way as well. It is manifestly clear to me that the Park Service is working on a temporary workaround at the very least, and they're not trying to hide it at all. But you got to know what you're looking for. So if you are coming from DC, if you're coming from I guess it's sort of from the south and east at that point, it'll be on the left-hand side of the trail, and it's a very gentle way down. You can roll your bike down, even fully loaded. It's pretty easy. There's one drop of about maybe 3 or 4 feet. It's not too bad to do with a loaded bike. And then you can cross with your bike through a few inches of water on a dry day. Now, if there's rain, it's going to be a lot more. But going up, there's a bit of a haul for your bike. It's only 3 or 4 feet, as opposed to, say, 20 feet, which is what the other side of the washout had. And then you follow the little red flags all the way up, and boom, you are on the other side of the trail. Same, of course, going the opposite direction. It is clearly something that the Park Service is doing on purpose. I thought for a moment, would there be anybody else that would be doing something like that obviously with that kind of marking? And although I can't say for sure that it isn't some other entity or party, I can't believe that they would take the risk of doing something like that on Park Service property. So I think what's happening right now is the Park Service is perhaps, and I'm speculating here, gently suggesting, because they know people are going to go around it, and they know that there are stupid, unsafe ways, i.e. taking the train tracks, to go around this, they're making a safer way, but they're not really publicizing it. That is my best guess. One other thing I wanted to say is that the towpath is officially quote-unquote closed, but there is no trespassing signs around that area. Now, I'm not trying to be lawyer here or anything like that, but that's not much of a distinction, but it's worth noting. And the fact that those flags are left in place, it's very clear that there's a path that's in place. I think that this is the Park Service's beginnings of an attempt to create an official workaround, and maybe also their tacit approval, maybe that's overstating it, of a way to get around this outage. And it's pretty easy based on what I saw. Again, I am not advocating anything illegal. If it turns out this is illegal, then don't do this. But it was interesting because I saw people coming from both directions wanting to go past it. And there were also a couple of locals who were biking nearby, and it was very clear that this has been done a lot. So if I were to speculate and guess, I think that the Park Service realized that there were going to be people that were going to be taking unnecessary risks to do bad idea ways to travel around it. And they figured out a way to take down a tree or two, clear out some space, and then flag out some things to make an easier, safer route. So that's there for you. I will have a video that will show what I saw. And some of it is kind of hysterical because doing it the hard way that's not the stupid way. There's a stupid way, the stupid illegal way on the tracks. Nobody did that. Then there's the hard way, and I got some film of some guys doing that. And then there's the better way, which is the way that Sherlock Holmes here, figured out by seeing those big red and orange flags. I'm not saying that I was Sherlock Holmes. It was just kind of funny. Okay, so that is the good news. That is what we've got on the C&O. Look for a video in the Pedalshift feed sometime relatively soon. I'm hoping to get that out sometime this week, maybe before this podcast hits the podosphere on the Thursday at 7 a.m. like it usually does, for those of you on the live show. If you're in the podcast feed, if you're listening to this right now, go check it out. It might be in the show notes, pedalshift.net/127. If it's not there, I will give a mea culpa and tell you when I hope to get it out. Maybe this weekend. And we like to end off the show, as always, with a big thank you to the supporters of the show who are members of the Pedalshift Society. If you like what you hear, you can help maintain Pedalshift as an independent, listener-supported voice while expanding the offerings. We're talking $1, $2, $5 a month. Helps with the cost of hosting the podcast and the website. You can do it for a bit and cancel anytime. One-shot support is welcome as well. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Ethan Georgie, Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Josiah Matthews, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittis, Thomas Skadow, Seth Krieger, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Noah Schroer, Harry Telgadas, John Sikorsky, Richard Killian, Chris Barron, Brian Wren, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Paul Mulvey, Stuart Buchan, Todd Stutz, Mr. T, Roxy Arning, Nathan Poulton, Harry Hugel, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Ruth Divorcey, Michelle Miller, Matthew Lewis, Michael Baker, Billy Crafton, Paul Culbertson, Scott Culbertson, Matt Perry, Danielle Jepson, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Bobby Ruppel, Roy Everett, Greg Braithwaite, John Mayer, William Cairns, Sandy Pizzio, Richard Patch, Mark Messer, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Dave Roll, Joseph Quinn, John Baxter, and Susan Brewster. And thanks also to all past contributors and anonymous contributors for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.